Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining Amarin's Trusted Voices webinar. We really appreciate it, you joining us today. I am Monica Brain. I'm project specialist with Amarin Critical Infrastructure, and I'm stepping in for Felix, who is stuck in traffic today. So we are talking about digital inclusion today. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. I've got a top-notch expert who's going to explain it to you. But if I had to give the short and sweet answer, I'd say that it has to do with being able to use the internet to live your fullest life. That means being able to get on your phone and fill out a form for a job application or even building your own website to sell jewelry. To present on this today, we have Davida Delmar. Davida is the Digital Inclusion Manager at Amarin Critical Infrastructure, ACI. Her job is the result of a unique partnership between ACI and the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. And she travels across the US facilitating workshops and providing knowledge on the basics of digital inclusion. And Davida is Navajo. Thanks, Davida. Take it away.
Hello everyone. Yaade, she Davida Delmar Unisia, Biptoin Nisle, do Kinthachini, Bashashin, Kia Ani Dashe, do Torachini, Dashnal. So yes, as Monica says, I am a citizen of the Navajo Nation, and my role, of course, is with ACI is the Digital Inclusion Manager. Oh, hey, I can control it. So.
Oh, look at that. All right, I'm going to hop off and let Davida take it away.
Okay, cool. So there's my contact info if you want more information. I'm open to providing the resources that I'm going to present here, a copy of the presentation if you like, or if you want to join any of the initiatives that I'm going to go over, please feel free to contact me. So as you may all know, Amarin Critical Infrastructure provides professional management and design services for tribal projects aimed at bringing broadband to tribal nations, businesses, and communities. And of course, part of that effort is digital equity. We want to highlight how digital equity is essential in terms of how we do broadband deployment and everything that's not has to do with the wires, if that makes sense. So the social aspect of it, of getting online and having people feel safe getting online too. So as Monica said, we actually have a unique partnership with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. And today, when I go over the definitions, I just want to have this caveat that all the definitions come from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. They actually developed a lot of these definitions through the help of their partners and network of practitioners and working groups. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that NDIA has coined a lot of this. That's not to say that we also are redefining it ourselves in Indian country to make it fit our needs as well. So who is the National Digital Inclusion Alliance? So NDIA advances digital equity by supporting community programs and equipping policymakers to act. So they have a network of over 1,600 affiliates, and in that group, all 50 states are represented within that group, and they're building the numbers in terms of tribal entities or native entities. We're up to 31 right now, and that's growing every day. So if you would like to join NDIA, I'll tell you more about it at the end. But again, back to definitions. So the key issue that we're talking about today is the digital divide. The digital divide is the issue. It is the gap between those who have affordable access, skills, and support to effectively engage online and those who do not. The digital divide disproportionately affects Native people, Black people, other people of color, low-income families, people with disabilities, people in rural areas, and elders. So just to be clear, the digital divide is the issue we're trying to address. Digital inclusion is the work that we do to achieve digital equity, which is the goal. So those, hope it's clear, and that actually helps me out a lot when I'm engaging with folks, because we throw around a lot of these terms and it can interchange digital inclusion and digital equity. Just know there's a slight difference between the two. So what is digital inclusion? Digital inclusion are the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to and use of information and communication technologies, or ICTs. The work for tribes is the same, but given our sovereign status, we must consider policy work, strengthening internal governance capacities, and strengthening the political, economic, and community development as part of our digital inclusion work. Native nations will leverage the closure of the digital divide to strengthen self-determination and assert their digital sovereignty. On to digital equity. So this is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. So for Indigenous and communities, for Indigenous communities, digital equity advances and uses the impact of technology in society in this digital age. Digital tools have the potential to advance the identity of and creating thriving lives and communities for Native people when they become truly adept at living and working in the 21st century. This image is actually from NDIA's conference at Net Inclusion, and we were able to bring a diverse, body of folks to the table and to be represented at the national conference, which is great. So you can see folks from the lower 48, Alaska Native folks, Hawaiian Native folks. So this is, applicable to all those folks that we want to achieve digital equity. So you might be asking yourself, why digital equity? So digital equity, so as you can see here, if you look at this image, it illustrates the difference between equality, so that's giving everyone exactly the same thing, the same resources, the same knowledge, versus equity, which is providing resources that there's actually an equitable outcome in the long run. Okay. So this equality side represents how equal distribution of resources across communities with different needs doesn't yield even outcomes. It doesn't consider the unique needs of each population involved. The equity side changes how the books are distributed to ensure everyone can access the computer. It's a simple way to advocate for distributing resources that creates a similar outcome overall. So I hear a lot of people say, if you've met one tribe, you've met one tribe. Each tribe has its own governance system, cultural norms, and teachings, and they also have their own story to share. It is vital that we identify the appropriate resources needed to achieve digital equity for each of our communities. So equity for Indian country is essential in serving and acknowledging all Native and Indigenous people, including federally recognized tribes, state recognized tribes, Alaska Native villages, and Native Hawaiians who each need unique solutions that fit their community. So there are barriers to achieving or to bridging the digital divide, and I'm going to go over that right now. So some key barriers to digital inclusion follow within these buckets right now. And actually, let me back up a second. Sorry. So there are key barriers to digital inclusion. A question for you all to consider is, if the internet was available to everyone in your community, what would still prevent people from consistently connecting to the internet and using it effectively? So imagine ACI did their job. They were able to help all these tribes and build their networks, and everyone gets on the internet in those communities or are able to. What would still prevent people from logging on and getting online? Right? And I've already given you the answer a little bit. So they fall within these three buckets. Okay. So these are definitely things to consider in terms of our access and ability to log on. So the first thing is devices. So devices can be unaffordable. There can be, maintenance involved in terms of software. It needs to be updated. There's also, in terms of access to device, is important, to the right device, I should say, and I'll go over that soon. Also, the device is not matching the needs of the user too, and that can mean many things too. We saw this a lot actually during COVID, where some tribes were able to provide a device to either all the elders in their community or maybe even students who are going on to school, and they did a really great thing, which is provide a device to everyone, and they all got the same thing, which was incredible. But at the same time, it didn't meet everybody's needs. For instance, maybe their school needed certain programs to be installed on a laptop, but the tribe gave them a tablet or something. Or the elders all got a tablet, which was great, but they didn't show them how to log on. They didn't show them how to use Zoom or download it or anything, which goes into like other things, which will go into these buckets too. So a mass distribution of one type of device is not going to solve the digital divide. We have to do a little bit more work towards it. So in terms of broadband, it also can be unavailable. There can be unreliable service. It can be unaffordable. And there's also this thing called digital redlining, which is there's policies in place that actively discriminate against certain groups of people, whether it be in cities or in rural places. And for tribes, it can be refusal to build on tribal land. So when people are building out fiber networks or wireless networks, they actively go around tribes so they can avoid partnering with them, gaining permission from folks. And this is an issue. We really need, tribes to be asked to the table and to be included in the new infrastructure that's coming out. So, and finally, to digital skills, which I'm kind of alluding to this whole time, is that a lot of folks have limited digital skills. Training is not accessible. There's fear and shame around it to admit that maybe you aren't fully knowledgeable about various things. And also there's privacy concerns. We've got a lot of scams out there and things like that. One issue with the curriculum that's out there is it's not, catered to Native people, to their experiences, to their language, to their cultural norms and things like that. So we want to be actively conscious of those things when we're building digital skills curriculum for, tribal communities. So these are different things that we see in terms of key barriers to digital inclusion. In order to solve this, there's actually 4 elements of digital inclusion that NDIA identifies, which is, of course, spelled out here: affordable, appropriate devices, ongoing tech support, affordable high-speed internet, and digital skills training. And we can do this through digital skills programs, or excuse me, digital inclusion programs. I apologize. So the digital inclusion programs are meant to address all 4 of these, and they can be located within an organization that's doesn't even have a digital inclusion mission. I mean, that's highly encouraged. So for instance, digital inclusion programs have existed in Indigenous communities for a long time, whether they use the term digital inclusion or not. So for example, workforce development offices are helping folks prepare materials and apply for jobs online. And elder centers host computer classes after Christmas to help folks learn the new device they were gifted. And we saw that with Mohawk Networks. They saw a need and they offered these classes after Christmas to help people get on their new gifted device. So who is doing digital inclusion work in your community and helping folks find trusted support for their connectivity, devices, and skill needs? I just really want to emphasize that question again. So who is doing digital inclusion work in your community and helping folks find trusted, and that's important, trusted support for their connectivity, devices, and skill needs? So that's for you to identify in your community of who is actually doing this, or maybe working towards that, or doing a version of it. So if we go into these solutions, the first one we're going to cover is affordable and low-cost broadband. And one solution that we found is offering free and low-cost internet plans. What's great about NDIA is that they have free resources that you can access to, understand this concept a little bit more. So they have free and low-cost internet plans, which can provide guidance to clients and constituents. And what I mean by that is like folks who are helping other people navigate, low-cost plans or what kind of broadband they need. One example of this, of course, is like if there's an elder who never gets online, only checks their email and things like that, but is, told you need the best internet, the fastest internet, and they're given like a gamer level sort of speed, and so now they're overpaying because they're just checking their email on a daily basis. They're not using it to the extent or the potential of what their speed could be. But then there's also another way too. So maybe an elder has their grandkids over and realizes that their speed is really low, so they want to accommodate their grandkids. There's different ways. So you talk through with folks like what their lifestyle is, what their needs are, and how they work every day, how they use the internet. With tribes, so a tribal internet service provider, or as we say, an ISP, can provide discounts for elders or low-income families. And we saw this trend after the Affordable Connectivity Program ended, the ACP, which was just last month. It ended completely. We saw tribal ISPs working towards offering discounts to folks who are in the most in need. And so that's, directly to elders, and maybe it's expanding to low-income families or students, whoever it might be. Tribal government can negotiate service agreements on tribal land to offer free and low-cost options too. So what I mean by that is that if big companies come in and they want to build a tower on your land, on your tribal land to serve, the broader community, negotiate terms. You own that land, ensure that the service that they're going to provide is going to be robust, high speed, and is going to be affordable to the folks who are going to be using it, which includes, hopefully tribal citizens. Okay. So the next solution we're looking at is appropriate and affordable devices. So as I said, I was going to go over a little bit more. So there's three major devices that are out there, which is a smartphone, tablet, and a computer. So a smartphone is the most portable device, It has multiple connection options, has a long battery, and the only thing is it doesn't replace a laptop. So you can't necessarily, or it's going to take time and effort, to write a whole paper on, your little smartphone. So we highly encourage you to look at other options. And actually what we found in our work is that Alaska folks prefer updated cell phones over tablets and computers because they are able to be portable. They can use it within that, and in a way that, adapts to their rural lifestyle. And I don't know if you've ever been to Alaska. haven't ever been in the bush, but the connectivity is very, very limited. And so if you're going to have a device, what device would you have? And we've just kind of learned that from folks that they would prefer a cell phone over a laptop. Moving on to tablet, so they're great for accessibility. They have a long battery, although they cannot make calls without a cellular data plan. So it's just going to add another bill to your monthly bills. So, but the touchscreen and large displays could be preferred by elders too. So just something to consider. For laptops, they're mandatory for many jobs and applications. They have a large storage, but they have a shorter battery life, and they're the least affordable option. So we see a lot of our tribes looking towards to find solutions for Native entrepreneurs. And so the laptops would be probably the best in terms of all of these. I know there's mobility and accessibility that's, going to be offered with the first two, but also the laptop is a great way to kind of build a business and to build skills and stay connected. So an affordable, can you just lie? So another option is a device distribution program, which can come into refurbished devices or new devices. So a device distribution program enables the user to own a device and have agency on customizing device to fit their needs and possibly in choosing their device. So when acquiring devices, consider how folks in your service area use or have a need for specific devices such as hotspots, smartphones, tablets, laptops, desktop computers, before purchasing or acquiring devices. Mass distribution of one type of device can invoke gaps in the community, fully adopting and using the internet. So providing devices to the community members has been a key part of building partnerships from finding distributors or manufacturers in an effort to find low-cost devices. So there's more to this. So distributing a device is going to create partnership within the community and beyond. Devices can be refurbished or brand new. So refurbished computers have the benefit of being low cost, may offer warranties or tech support, but can be limited since their inventory is based on donations. So whatever comes in, that's what they can offer back to the community. So having computer refurbishing programs as partners has the added benefit of strengthening local and regional digital inclusion systems. And the reason I say that is that a lot of our programs have been successful based on the level of partnership and the valuable partnership, just the partnerships involved have been making our digital inclusion programs a little bit more successful. So they are also there's also a physical location, for the community to learn about the device hardware and for potential champions to be motivated to support digital equity. So in this case, I don't know if you see in the picture here, we have Digital Connect from Gila River. Their staff is actually partnering with their local refurbisher to learn and clean devices. So possibly that they can do it themselves or partner and just see the processes a little bit more and to know that the device that they're, people that they're distributing to are getting a quality device. However, of course, there's new devices. So acquiring new computers is more flexible, and the type of device requires minimal tech support, or I should say may require minimal tech support, and can be purchased in bulk. However, new devices may be expensive. Some people have instituted a learn to earn model, which incentivizes folks to take advantage of digital skills um, by getting a device. So you have to take digital skills classes in order to get a device. Following a completion of tasks such as skill set surveys, digital skills classes, sessions with a digital navigator. Our friends at Alaska Federation of Natives, whenever they give out a device, they stick their sticker on there so that they can follow up and say, if you need any digital skills, call this number, which is really, really smart. Another piece of it is support. So talking about computer labs and device loan programs can be an option for many communities. So if there's a high demand for devices, but you have a small budget, this can be a really great solution. So you can provide a centralized access for devices as well too. So computer labs and loan programs are a good opportunity for users to become familiar with a device and eventually help them inform on a future purchase on a device. So people can come in, play with different devices, a PC versus a Mac, and really make a choice of like an informed choice of which they prefer. A digital navigator can use the centralized lab or space to host computer skills classes, but some drawbacks to a computer lab include a central location can be limiting for a lot of rural communities. There's less autonomy for the user, and it may limit accessibility of the user, meaning given their physical impairment. So case in point is the Hopi Nation. They have a mobile computer lab that they used to kind of move around. So they've kind of they've decentralized it in a sense, their computer lab to meet folks where they are, which is really great. So finally, digital skills. Digital skills, I'll just say this. So in digital inclusion programs, focus on device access can incorporate other areas of digital skills and tech support into their program in an effort to provide a more holistic approach to individuals. So I will just say meeting all three of these different things, broadband, device access, and digital skills, is just going to make your digital inclusion program that more holistic and approachable to the public that you're serving. I also want to note here that I'm using the word digital skills rather than digital literacy. I know that term is used and it can be interchangeable, but literacy implies that people are illiterate and that knowledge of digital tools, is binary. So like either you have the knowledge or you don't. When referring to digital skills, most people are learning constantly as new technologies emerge. I'll be the first one to admit that I don't know all the capabilities that my computer does. I'm still learning. I mean, I teach this stuff. I don't know if I can do it. So I highly encourage you to still build your digital skills as more things are being introduced every day. And one key aspect of this is actually artificial intelligence. It's something I really want to learn more about, and maybe I can use it more effectively in my work as well, but also knowing the pitfalls of it too. So when we talk about digital skills, so adults need to have the following foundational skills which underpin all essential digital skills. So I'm still going to go over the first couple, but for instance, the first thing you can ask is, can you turn on your device? Can you use the available controls on your device? Can you interact with the home screen on your device as well? We asked these same questions to folks at Gila River, and one person was like, every time I turn on my phone, I take a photo. How do I stop that from happening? And so we changed her settings, and after that, it was just like a huge weight off her shoulder. She was like, finally, I don't have to, delete photos from my storage because I keep taking photos. It's these different little things. It's not her, it's her device that needs to be changed. She just needed to, know how to like activate those kind of things. But there's a source there that you can check out that gives a little bit more context. There's also digital skills training resources too. So if you're interested in this and providing this to your community, these things are great. North Star, Senior Planet is free. This is more for elders, the elder community. Microsoft Learn. There's also an NDIA blog, so you don't have to start from scratch. If you want to build your own curriculum, they have tips there. There's also techboomers.com, digitallearn.org, gcflearnfree.org. The Mozilla Foundation has some materials as well. And in terms of the native space, we've found that there's already people who are doing this. So Grow Google, who's Henry Jake Foreman with the New Mexico Community Capital, is a person who will come and actually provide digital skills trainings to various tribes across the country. There's also, programs at tribal and local libraries who are doing this. They are also prioritizing digital inclusion programs as well. And believe it or not, your tribal ISP can actually do this too. Case in point is Hoopa Valley Tribe. They're partnering with local libraries to offer more digital inclusion programs. They have an open doors policy too. They provide individual tech support to folks who need it. They utilize North Star. And since they're an ISP, they've actually asked their digital navigator to go with their tech people when they do installs, so that when they're installing the internet, whether it be a wireless or fiber connection, I think it's just wireless right now, their digital navigator can talk to the homeowner or the person who's there and ask them, like, so how do you use the internet? This is the speed you're going to get, and explaining all the different features and knowing that they can follow up with them if they need more skills later. It's been going great so far, as far as we know. So I've mentioned digital navigators throughout this, and I just want to say digital navigators is a great option. And as I said, we actually have a partnership with NDIA, and it's based off of a digital navigator program. The National Digital Navigator Corps is 18 sites who have a full-time digital navigator who are based in rural and tribal communities. And those that are bolded right there are actually the tribal communities. So if you recognize that name and want to partner with them, they're open to more partnerships. Like, as I said, partnerships are a key part of why they're successful, and building more community, building their community, to close the digital divide, So, but then of course, what are digital navigators? Digital navigators are trusted guides who assist community members in internet adoption and the use of computing devices. And they address the whole digital inclusion process, meaning home connectivity, devices, digital skills with community members through repeated interactions. So it's not just a one and done. They are there to have repeated interactions. So while some refer to digital navigators as a form of tech support, it might be more accurate to think of them as a caseworker. Their role is this role is something closer to an empathy-based social worker or librarian with cultural competency. So they have empathy, they assess needs, they recommend resources, and provide support through the process of assessing those resources. So they're amazing. An example of this is up in Alaska. This is our digital navigator, Sajai, and he says, our plan is to promote our digital navigator's ability to help folks gain digital skills so that they can enhance their lives in ways that work for them. I'm imagining Native artists listing and selling their baleen, straw, bark, skin artwork online. I'm envisioning those gifted students who have a fire for learning, enhancing their instruction online so that they don't feel compelled to travel to boarding schools away from their home village. So when I say trusted, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. They have an investment in their community. They are hired from their community. There's a lot of passion and commitment to their role. And we're just so proud of this project and be a proud partner of NDIA. So when we look at digital equity within tribal communities, the point of this too is to offer solutions. Well, actually, I should say that maybe these solutions can be daunting, but it's about connecting the dots and not necessarily doing it all by yourself, if that makes sense. So when you look at your tribal community, this is my little, res town. Maybe ask yourself, whose job is it to solve the digital divide? So if you look at this, you can see that there's tribal police, there's maybe IHS there's the powwow grounds, there's maybe HUD housing. As you can tell, they all look the same, so HUD housing maybe. the basketball court, maybe the school. And I always joke around that the biggest building is, tribal council. But whose job is it in this community to solve the digital divide? Who is benefiting from having connectivity, affordable connectivity, robust internet, and appropriate devices? I'll answer for you. Everybody, everybody must be included in this effort to achieve digital equity. But only a few people can do it. And these are some of my suggestions. So tribal nations who are working towards digital equity usually kind of involve these different departments here. Overall, the tribal government, of course, various tribal departments, depending on which those departments are. But this is just like a snapshot of who can, is well equipped to start this conversation. I highly encourage you to offer these as partnerships and build upon an ecosystem that can, build within not just working with digital equity, but other efforts. It's going to affect your economy, your health, the knowledge that's built within your community too. I think it's expanding a lot beyond just digital equity and inclusion. So I said the word ecosystem. There's such a thing called digital inclusion ecosystem, which is a combination of programs and policies that meet a geographic community's unique and diverse needs. Coordinating entities work together in an ecosystem to address all aspects of the digital divide, including affordable broadband devices and skills. And so actually the state of Hawaii has a really good example of this in terms of if you want to take these concepts and adapt it to an indigenous perspective. And I said the state of Hawaii, which is kind of startling because usually the state, has some states, I'll just say, don't partner well with, indigenous groups or tribes in their state. But they've actually gone with this and rolled with it. So for instance, they've taken these concepts of digital equity, access, the ISP, digital navigators, and actually applied them directly to like an actual physical ecosystem because their state of Hawaii is essential that they pay attention to how their physical ecosystem is thriving. So case in point, and I hope you can see this, but you can get the slides if you like, or you can look at the Hawaii state plan. They have this in there. Digital equity, they consider the sun. The sun plays a critical role in powering and providing life for everything living in the ecosystem. The internet service providers are the clouds. Clouds are the main providers of water. And water, of course, is internet service. Water is the most important component of any ecosystem. It cycles through the atmosphere, soils, streams, and oceans, and provides all things living in the ecosystem with what they need to grow. And I just think this is a fantastic example of applying indigenous concepts to a digital equity concept. So as I said, you're not alone in this fight. There's different ways you can amplify your efforts, and one way is a coalition. And this is, of course, a coalition is people who are committed to working toward digital equity in our communities by working together across a variety of organizations and institutions to advance these goals. If you're thinking, I've never started a coalition, how do I even do this? Again, NDIA has a great resource. They have a coalition guidebook, which I must say has been really helpful in terms of looking at my own community and understanding how to find key partners and how to manage those key partners too. It's amazing. I've also done a little bit of the work for you. So these are key partners and collaborators that I see in a lot of our tribal communities. The first at the top is community anchor institutions. You might say, that is not always the case in our tribal communities. And a definition of a community anchor institution is reliable hours and full-time staff. And sometimes that doesn't always happen with our communities. We're understaffed, budget cuts. So we have to kind of figure out other ways to provide services to our community. But there's various different organizations that are in and around our region that can be helpful, or different groups of people. Who is serving the elders? We want to know what department is serving them, who has contact with them. So consider these different folks when you're considering recommended partners and collaborators. And invite them to the table when you're looking at the longevity of your program. because having these partners is going to add to the sustainability of your digital equity programs. And if we're talking about sustainability, I really want to mention digital equity plans. So digital equity plans are, in the most simplest terms, a strategic plan for digital equity. So for instance, if we change what we were saying, if we wanted to have a strategic plan for our healthcare, that might prompt a lot of ideas, right? It's the same thing with digital equity plans. It's a strategic plan to, bridge the digital divide and achieve digital equity. So NDIA, again, has a resource which they actually suggest a digital equity plan outline. And as you can see in section 1, there's a vision for digital equity. You also get to identify stakeholders and how you're engaging with them and collaborating with stakeholders within your community. There's also a definition of the current state of digital equity. So that involves identifying the specific barriers to your community, what they are, and how do we define them? What's the data that we have that can show that? And then also defining objectives and an implementation strategy to overcome those barriers and start moving towards digital equity, finally with an evaluation and update so that we can keep this sustainable. And there's a little bit more to it than that. But for now, I can offer a couple resources. So NDIA created this for states because they were all required to build a digital equity plan. And they have a plan, but also implementation manual too that they can, and it's there for them to follow. We're also partnering with NDIA to provide an Indigenous digital equity planning guide, and that should be done later this year. Okay, so that's coming. And the reason why it's coming later this year is because there's going to be funding coming out, which I'll get to in a sec. But first, I wanted to ask you all and consider this other question I have. Why is it important for a tribe to develop their own digital equity? Okay. And we asked some of our mentors within this space the same, and they had this answer. So it's important because you can understand and utilize how technology can affirm and foster culture. It sets a plan for future funding, federal, state, local, for both digital equity and broadband. You can explore sustainability options that ensure citizens can afford connectivity and the tribe can be self-sufficient. You can identify resource and capacity gaps to close the digital divide too. And then finally, it's a practice of sovereignty. So managing a nation's own policies and codes that control the data and infrastructure and networks. It's really important that we are achieving what we're calling, our digital sovereignty. And it all contributes to this. I'm going to skip through this, but you can reference this later on. But there's some resources out there, some really great people who are working on this. So if you feel like an island still, there's some resources that are happy to help. I mean, I put us at the top, Amarin. Of course, you can reach out to us. NDIA is always also an option, and I'm your contact there too. But AIPI, or the American Indian Policy Institute at Arizona State University, is actually developing a center for tribal digital sovereignty that's going to address more of the broadband side. So that's going to be helpful in the long run. They also have certificates and leadership that can be helpful to advancing, the champions in your community. There's the NTTA. They have a conference twice a year that people can attend and get some great resources. And of course, it keeps going. I also want to just point out that the Tribal Broadband Bootcamp has been super helpful to me. I participate as a participant, but also I'm an instructor there for digital equity. I highly encourage you to check it out. Just go to tribalbroadbandbootcamp.com to find out if you can attend one of those. And I think the next one is in Michigan. So as I said, there's funding coming down. Funding is incredibly important, and this is a long time coming. Ever since I started ACI 2 years ago, they've said that funding is coming, and anyway, issues have happened, but now it's finally here, and it's great. So just to let you know, it's a little complicated, as you can see from this chart here. The Digital Equity Act passed, and it was part of the Infrastructure Act during COVID. So NTIA is responsible for distributing these digital equity funds to the state and also to the tribes. So to the states, they're giving BEAD funding. They have their state digital equity planning grants and their state digital capacity grants. The ones in gray actually have already passed. I just want to be clear. And actually, for tribes, they've had the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, which largely focused on broadband deployment. In the last round, they actually had some digital equity funds that you could have taken advantage of. Of course, they're closed now. But yes, so you could have done it then. But the next round of funding is coming. So I've labeled it Tribal Digital Equity Planning Capacity Grants, but actually the NOFO is included under the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant. I don't know if that's information you need, but if you're looking for, you know, this funding source, it's under the State Digital Equity Capacity Grants because, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure why, just to make it more confusing, we'll see. But there's also a competitive grant program too that's supposed to be released any day now, and tribes are eligible for both of those. And I'm going to go over just a little bit of the history behind this. As I said, it's been a long time coming. As of last year, the states developed digital equity plans. They're in the process of, you know, getting those approved, and it's going to be implemented soon. And their state digital equity, there's the first state capacity award was issued on August 28th, which actually, back up here, sorry. May 28th, state capacity program applications were due. And so people started, you know, scrambling this summer to get these done. And that's essentially to say that you can see that the Native entities that are highlighted, that's what we're focusing on. In September 25th, that's when the Native Entities Capacity Program application opens, and it's going to close on February 7th. But you can see it's kind of interchanged within the states. And what's also included here is this, if you look at late summer 2024, NTIA opens the competitive grants. That is for, you know, everyone basically. It's highly, highly, highly competitive. Native entities are highly encouraged to apply, and you can do for both if you want, the capacity and competitive. But just know that kind of are stacked on top of each other if you look at this timeline. So if we're looking at the state or the Native Entities Capacity Grant, they published a NOFO in March 29, 2024. As I said, it's within the state capacity grant NOFO. There's about a little over $45 million available for Native entities. The grant awards range from $500,000 to $2 million. They're highly competitive. They expect to make the first award by summer, or to distribute those awards by the summer of 2025. And it's going to be on a rolling basis too. And these grants are good up to 5 years, which is really, really great. There's a blog that I helped develop called the Native Entities Capacity Grant Program in partnership with NDIA's policy team. So that's linked there if you want to learn a little bit more. So some allowable uses. Native nations can use these funds without involvement from the states, although I highly encourage you to talk to states because you don't want to duplicate projects. So ensure that you all aren't getting the same thing, because that can jeopardize your application if you apply for funds that the state is already doing. So, but it can be used without involvement from the state as well. Funds may be used for digital equity planning and implementation of the program. So if you want to do a digital equity plan as well as implement it, great. Or you can apply and just do implementation programs, okay? What you can't do is just apply for digital equity plans, okay? So just want to make that distinction. The funds used for planning the digital equity plan is capped at 7.25%. Planning grant activities and capacity grant activities can be conducted simultaneously, meaning the planning and the implementation can be done at the same time. And if you're not familiar yet, but capacity refers to digital inclusion activities. So everything we've been talking about here, the examples I've given. You also can provide subgrants to folks too, and it's also administrative costs and evaluation are also allowable as well. So here's some key dates. So again, like I said, it opens September 25th. It closes February 7th. Native entities grant awards begin in summer 2025, and of course you have 5 years to use the grant up. Indian tribes, Alaska Native entities, and Native Hawaiian organizations are eligible to apply. Native entities may appoint a nonprofit or corporation to administer the grant too. You would just need to get tribal permission to do that. And NTIA actually encourages consortium applications, and I'll give more information of what that means, consortium. And also Native entities may only submit one application, meaning if you plan to be part of a consortium but also want to do an individual application, that is not allowed. You need to pick one or the other. So make those decisions now if you want to apply as a single application or within other folks in a consortium. Of course, like I said, there's going to be rolling basis and there's going to be other NOFOs, but this first application period is probably going to have the most money. So there's other ways to get digital equity funds. The states, you talk to your state because they may be offering subgrants. And that application period is going to depend on your state. It could start from this fall to spring 2025. So talk to your states. There's also, like I said, competitive digital equity grants, and those are supposed to be announced at any day now. They're extremely competitive because basically anyone is eligible for this competitive grant other than states because they got their own pot of money. They're likely to be given in large amounts. So it's probably most likely that consortiums, like groups of people, are going to get funded rather than like a single tribe. And they're going to come any day, late summer 2024. So I've said the word consortium applications. Just to be clear, it's an agreement or combination or group of organizations formed to undertake a digital inclusion project. For example, through an MOU document that outlines an agreement between two or more parties. So existing regional consortium or coalitions are well positioned to organize like this, rather than like starting one from scratch right now. I'm thinking this would be highly encouraged for maybe small Alaska villages, like if you already have a consortium ready to go, to apply as a full consortium would be, a good bet, rather than a single village. But it's totally up to you, depending. I don't know everybody, so it's whatever works for you is great. So here's some key things of how you can prepare. You can work on getting the necessary approvals from your tribal government, including tribal government resolution or the equivalent. Decide if you want to apply as a consortium or a single entity. Determine if you want to apply for digital equity planning funds or just implementation, or if you want to do both. So there's other things you can do too. So you can keep an eye out for our planning guide that's coming out. You can watch for NTIA's application guide for Native entities. That should be coming soon too, but it's up to NTIA when they're going to schedule that. And of course, all questions for this funding opportunity should be directed to NTIA, and their emails are digitalequity@ntia.gov. Some other tips too is to gather docs and admin materials now, such as some federal documents you might have. Get your unique ID, UEI from sam.gov. There's some resources you can check out right now, such as NDIA's resource asset mapping for digital inclusion. We have this opportunity called 7 Stars that's coming out this fall. And we have a working group that meets monthly. We actually just met yesterday and talking through some issues that if you're kind of thinking like, so did anyone else get this email from this corporation? Can we talk about this a little bit more? Is this affecting all tribes? It's just a great resource to like ask questions and to be included in a network of people who are all Native or representing Native communities. So yeah, if you want to join the NDI community, you can do so through this. They have free resources, they have monthly calls, and like I said, they have working groups. We of course have the Indigenous Digital Inclusion Working Group, and you can see that we have a mission and vision there that's based off of digital equity and digital inclusion. Just email me, of course, you can be a part of that. And like I said, there's this opportunity called 7-Star Communities. So we want to recognize and honor Native nations and Native entities who are doing great digital inclusion work. And as I said before, this isn't new to us, digital inclusion work. We do it in various ways. We just didn't call it that, So we want to recognize folks who have been doing this for a long time. And this is actually your first time seeing this logo, which is great, super official. And it's coming later this year. I think this is a great way to kind of gear up for when the capacity grant is coming, because it kind of helps you do an assessment of what you already have and maybe plan for something in the future too. So look out for it. It's actually going to be released next month in August. Super exciting, and we'll definitely make that announcement. Finally, which is also exciting, is that NDIA is actually hosting their conference, their annual conference, Net Inclusion, on tribal lands next year, 2025. So the Gila River Indian Community is actually hosting Net Inclusion. I should say that that NDIA is a non-native organization, predominantly non-native. So for them to partner with tribal nations and create that relationship with tribes is like a huge step. And I just encourage folks here to take advantage of that and meet other folks in the community. And as you saw from that big group photo, I mean, we kind of like each other. We love talking to each other and sharing our war stories and working through these problems of achieving digital equity and also our successes as well. So that is it for me. If there's any questions.
Thanks so much, Davida. So much incredible information shared there about digital inclusion. I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. If anybody's got any questions they want to put in, we'll read them. But I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So let's say tribes don't have a digital navigator program. What would you say are the first couple of steps that they need to take to create something like that?
Well, I think understanding your community a little bit better in terms of, I mentioned asset mapping, noting that there's other programs in the area that might be able to offer those. For instance, maybe Boys and Girls Club or someone like that have programs that are similar to that you can start learning from and seeing how they interact with people in your community, seeing if it's a need and that needs to grow. I think assessing if it's a program that works for you is probably the first step. The second step is getting, support, whether that be, leadership support or financial support to actually fund this program would be great. Another way to kind of dip your toes into like this, and I hate to say the word volunteer because I want everybody to be paid for the work that they do, but also just to kind of test out the waters and see how volunteers can do this. And you can do that with if you have tribal college students in your community, have this as like an advantage of showing people how to get on the internet, or even to get elders involved. Actually, some of our digital navigators are elder folks who want to get back into the workforce a little bit and teach others like themselves who want to learn their digital skills. So yeah, it just kind of takes some baby steps. But I think once you get funding or tribal leadership support, I think it's going to move a little faster. But if that first groundwork of assessing what your needs or barriers are in your community, understanding what digital equity looks like, understanding what programs might work is going to be just a little bit more fruitful to making your program that much better. And the last thing I'll say too is to identify partners, because I think I use the example of Boys and Girls Club, but a huge part of why our digital navigator programs are a success is partnerships. Finding folks who need access, who are, for example, in domestic violence, relationships, who, need to have accessibility, not just physically, but online, or veterans who need access to programs or social programs, healthcare, online, but maybe aren't physically able to do various things. There's these vulnerable populations out there that maybe are being served in various ways, but there's that key element of I just need a smartphone, or I just need my internet paid for or bills to be paid for, because I think internet is becoming such a essential utility, such as water bill or electric bill. We're trying to have this conversation of being it more common and that people need it in a broader sense. So yeah.
Absolutely. We have Nazir, and they want to know, you mentioned that Native entities may appoint a nonprofit corporation to administer the grant. Can you talk about that a little more?
Sure. So, for instance, a tribe can win a capacity grant, which is great. And if they want to give sub grants to tribal departments, you can do that. Or if you feel like there's a nonprofit, such as a Boys and Girls Club, who's already doing this work and just need extra funding, you can sub grant to them. So yeah, it is something that's allowable. You can do that. Um, but of course, then the tribal government, whoever is the the award recipient, can manage the administrative pieces of that, of handling the sub grants. But it's absolutely allowable, especially since we have some nonprofits in our tribal communities who may not be officially owned by the tribe, or but are doing great work and could benefit from advancing digital equity efforts. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers
No,
that, but just, yeah, if you already
yeah,
have great partners there, you just need someone to submit the application on behalf of your community, then that's totally allowable.
yeah, it sounds like you're saying don't reinvent the wheel with these things. Look into your communities and see what's already there and how you can build upon that, which I really love that idea. Well, Davida, thank you so much for joining Amarin's Trusted Voices webinar. After this, we will email everybody who's attended some list of resources as well as your slideshow. And if folks want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you, Davida?
So you can email me. I think I put it on the first slide and I just closed it. Apologize. Which is just my first initial and last name, ddelmar@amarin.com. It's a great way to
Awesome.
reach out, especially if you want to become part of our working group. Everyone is welcome who has a passion to serve tribal communities and digital equity, or is and both broadband and digital equity practitioners are welcome to join.
All right. Thank you so much, and stay tuned. We will have more Trusted Voices webinars coming up soon. Thanks.